Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about potential unbans coming to Commander. Well, what could potentially be unbanned, because they have addressed this and they've said, look, we're going to look at the ban list and everything. So just some little bit of background and everything. The Commander's Rule Council is gone due to a whole bunch of threats made against them and everything. They said, look, we can't do this anymore. And they've passed leadership of Commander over to Wizards of the Coast and Gavin Verhey. And he's going to be forming a advisory group, similar to like the Pauper Advisory Group, where they're going to be discussing unbanning stuff. They said no decisions are going to be made until after they form that advisory group though. However, they are working on a new tier system for cards that will allow people to rank their decks in terms of strength more easily. So a lot of these unbans would be bracket 4 kind of cards. It's actually really interesting, and I think that this could potentially see a lot of things get off the ban list, as long as they're like the bracket 4 cards where people are very aware that you have them and stuff. The whole point of this bracket system is to essentially allow it to be an easier way to have that kind of rule zero conversation of, look, this is my deck. These are the kinds of cards that I have in it. My deck is a power level 4, but it's only because of this one card that is in it. Otherwise, it's a power level 2. Personally, I'm a big fan of that. I think that it makes it a lot easier to kind of sit down at a table and people don't have to be like, look, I've got this infinite, and these tutors and stuff. You can just sit down and be like, okay, we're paying power level 2 decks. What's your deck? And you could be like, okay, it is that, except for I've got this one kind of demonic tutor in there. So therefore it's a 4, but only because of that card. I think personally I'm a big fan of it, but I know a lot of people aren't. So I think that's kind of something we're going to have to see in practice. But either way, they've come out and said, hey, we're going to be addressing the bans list and everything. Now, before we get into it, make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you share the video around. This could be the last video you might see from me because of the YouTube algorithm not liking me or whatever. So if you're seeing me through recommendations, make sure you subscribe, share the video around, all that kind of stuff. I make amazing content over here. I don't toot my own horn about much, but my content, I will happily toot it about. So let's start out with Ancestral Recall, probably one of the ones that I can easily say it is very unlikely to be unbanned. It is an insanely strong card draw for only 1 mana, and it's a very expensive reserve list card. It's essentially going to make it so that, to be that power level 4, if you're playing blue, then you could be running this card, in which case you have to either pay for it or proxy it. And I don't think Wizards likes proxies because, that's less money for them. So this is a way that, I just think that it's going to stay on the ban list just purely because of the fact that it's just so powerful for 1 mana. We've got Balance here. So while it's an annoying card, I don't think it's anywhere near game breaking. It slows the game down a lot, but not awful if it was unbanned in those power level 4 games, I don't think. I do think that it's a card that kind of, helps balance out later in the game and everything like that. So I think that it could be a very interesting card to have at those power level 4 cards. So I think it's possible. So just, to kind of summarize it up, I've got, I think it's 4 different tiers. So I've got, which is hilarious, I've got insanely unlikely, I've got unlikely, I've got possible, and then I've got likely. So this is possible, which is the second highest one. We've got Biorhythm. Now, I do think that this is an unlikely one, just purely because of it can really swing the game in a huge way, especially because of the fact that, we've got that 40, the 40 life total. Commander damage will obviously you can still win by commander damage and stuff. So it's kind of one of those ones that I'm like, potentially, but maybe not. It's not game breaking, but it's still kind of a huge one that potentially kind of screws over some big strategies, which I don't think that they want to unban unfun cards or ones that are broken in Commander. I think I'll get out there. Unfun cards or broken in Commander or just insanely strong cards. So I got Black Lotus. Insanely strong, insanely expensive, insanely strong. Black Lotus getting unbanned is like a 1% chance. I'm not saying impossible, by the way. I'm not saying impossible for these unbans, because I think that there are some that are, I'll say insanely unlikely, but they could be unbanned. But I just want to leave that 1% chance. All right, we've got Braid's Cabal Minion. Now, I think that she's going to stay banned unless they bring in banned as commander or power level 4 if is commander or something. I really, really hope they bring in banned as banned as commander and banned as companion, or power level 4 as commander, power level 4 as companion, just to make it easier to be like unbanning some of these cards that are banned because of the fact that in commander you just have access to them all the time. So like Braids, right? Having her in the command zone is just very, very strong. Now, originally she was banned as a commander because of that, but then when the banned as commander list went away, they just put her straight onto the banned list. So in the 99, I don't think she's quite as bad, but still an awful commander to play against that's just very unfun. We've got Channel. I don't think Channel's going to come back. 40 life in commander just makes us so much more powerful at the start of the game. There's ways to be able to turn this like colorless mana into colored mana, or even if you're just using it for mana rocks and stuff, you're still going to get a huge amount out of this. And paying 1 life is just not going to be great, right? Like it's just too powerful, I think, in a format where you've got 40 life. All right, Chaos Orbs. Dexterity cards aren't going to come back. I think I can just straight up say that there is a 0.1% chance of the dexterity cards. In Magic, you know, we don't have set spots that you need to put everything. So if you're playing against someone and they've got a Chaos Orb, the most ideal way to do it is just spread out all of your cards as far as possible, which is just really gross. We've got Coalition Victory. Now, this is one that I do think could be unbanned. So while it's super easy to get to in Commander, because, you know, having each basic's pretty easy, a creature of each type's pretty easy, it is still an 8-cost card. There are a lot easier ways to be able to win the game nowadays, like Thoracle and stuff. I don't know why how did I misspell Thoracle that bad? Like Thoracle and stuff, that I just don't think that this is as broken as it was when it was banned. So I do think that it is possible to get it unbanned. Dockside, I think it's likely. So there's some that in here I'm just going to say likely, and most of those are the ones that were just recently banned, because the reason they were banned is because they were too powerful and game warping for those more casual games. But with like the power brackets, then you can put those ones up in the power level brackets, right? Which is essentially banning it for casual. And, you know, then it can still come back for CEDH. So I do think that it's very likely that Dockside could see an unban because of that. Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. This one is hard, right? Like, it's a very powerful card. And, you know, once you cast it, you get that free extra turn and you get to be able to, you know, get protection from everything. I don't think it's quite as bad as it used to be. There's a lot of ways to be able to remove protection, and, you know, be able to potentially see that going forward. Although the protection needs to be removed it needs to be like a colorless protection removal. So we might see some ways to be able to do that in the future. But the big issue is that it is colorless, so it can just slot into so many decks. So it's kind of like an unlikely, but still possible. Areo Saratami Ascendant, and I hope I didn't butcher that too badly. So I think it's unlikely that this gets banned just because of, again, that chance that it could be your commander. If they bring back banned as a commander and it's okay in the 99, I think that it's possible we could see this stick around. The hitting 4 spells is really easy to do nowadays. And, you know, it's not going to be potentially hard. So that's pretty annoying, but there's also a lot more kind of removal, enchantment removal. It just needs to not be the first card you're casting that turn. So in the 99, it's not quite as bad because once it's removed, either, you know, it's in the graveyard and then they need to recur it, or once it's removed, it's gone. We've got Falling Star, a dexterity card. I already told you about this. Fast Bond, it's a very, very strong enchantment. Don't get me wrong. Very strong enchantment. But there's just so much ramp nowadays that this could potentially be okay. Potentially. Like the 1 damage with the high health pools is going to make it less dangerous. But I guess the strategy would be just draw a million cards, then play this, then get a whole bunch of lands out, which would be obviously, you know, painful. But that's like a big kind of strategy. I don't know. It's kind of, I think it's possible, not like likely, but it is possible we could see Fast Bond unbanned for like those, you know, power level 4 decks. We got Flash. I think Flash is unlikely. It just enables so much. It just breaks so many different things. That's like, you know, it was breaking so much stuff when it was banned with, what was it, Protein Hulk, I think it was. Better creatures nowadays as well make it more powerful. So now that we've got better creatures with bigger ETBs and stuff, it means that it's just more and more powerful when those start coming in. We've got Gifts Ungiven. Now, I do think this one is a possible unban. So you're tutoring up 4 things. You put an opponent gets to choose 2 of those, and they go into your hand, and then 2 into the graveyard. Now, I do think that it is very strong, but there's slowly been getting better tutors and better ways to be able to do this. Like, look at the most recent... the uncommon, I think it is, within Duskmorn. That's like, whenever this is tapped in your second main phase, search something up and chuck it into your graveyard. That's already pretty powerful. I do think that this is strong, but I don't think it's game-breakingly strong. Like, what is it? Like, Fact or Fiction is kind of similar, right? Except it's the top cards of your deck instead of tutoring things. So it's kind of like a Fact or Fiction. Yeah, costs the same as Fact or Fiction, so I guess you just run this over Fact or Fiction each time. It's possible, but not impossible. So we've got Golos again. If he was banned as a commander, then that would be fine. In the 99, I think he's fine, but I think he's unlikely unless they bring back that banned as commander, just because there's just so many decks you could run him as a commander of, just as a good stuff commander, and then fill the 99 with, like, you know, whatever you want to bring. Like, if you want to do slivers under Golos, you could. We've got Grizzlebrand. Insanely powerful effect when we've got so much life. The high health totals just make it less dangerous, but again, there's lots of cards that already draw you a lot. The biggest issue is that he can be a commander. If he wasn't, like if he didn't have the option of being your commander, I think that he's less awful. Hull Breacher, I think, is unlikely, just because it just stops all draw besides the first card in draw steps. Is just an insanely powerful ability, especially when you've got, like, let's say you add in wheels, right? You're wheeling stuff, you're just stopping everyone else, locking everyone else out of the game. You're making 1 million treasures as well. Yeah, it's just really painful. Iona, Shield of Emeria. This is just going to lock people out of being able to play a color. That is, like, if I just choose blue, boom, now you can't counterspell mostly. You can't, like, you know, return things back to my hand. Like, you could just lock, and especially someone is playing, like, you know, you've got 4 people at a table. The chances that someone is playing a monocolored deck isn't too low. So you're just locking a player out of the game. Yeah, I hate that. I think it's very unlikely. Now, Jeweled Lotus. This is an easy unban for Power 4. I think that, you know, this is the kind of guaranteed thing that in a Power 4, Bracket 4, whatever you want to call it, this could be unbanned. It's very strong. It can only be used on your commander, though, unless you've got some way to jinx it around or something like that. It's a very nice card that was banned because of the way it warps the format around for like the more casual kind of player. So I think that this is a thing that could be very easily unbanned with this new bracket system. We've got Caracas. I think that this is insanely unlikely for commander, right? Like, just returning their commander to their hand each time that's so insane in commander. It's just, yeah, no, it just does not work in commander. We got Leobold, Emissary of Tress. Now, as opposed to Hull Breacher, I don't think this is quite as bad, because people can at least draw, like, on other people's turns 1 card. It still is insane in, like, wheel decks and stuff. So it's still pretty bad, but I think it's a possible, right? It's kind of like on that borderline of it could be unbanned, but it's like getting to the point that I think that it's not likely, but still good. We've got Library of Alexandria. Now, I think if it was reprinted, this could likely be unbanned at a power level 4, but it is reserve list, so we're just going to treat it as it's insanely unlikely that it gets unbanned, because it's just a very, very powerful card that you would just run in nearly every single deck, and it is reserve list, so it's unlikely to get reprinted. But it's an insanely powerful card, but it's not, like, brokenly powerful to the point that I think it's banned just because of power. I think that being on the reserve list and being so expensive is playing into that as well. Limited resources. Yeah, no, this is just a card that doesn't really work in Commander because there can only be 10 or more lands in play between 4 players. That's like each person having, what, 3 lands roughly? No, 2 lands? 2.5? Yeah, in a 4-player format, this just does not work very well. We got Lutri, the Spell Chaser. Realistically, Lutri's only banned because of being a companion and because of all Izzet plus decks would be able to run her because of the fact that her ability, her companion ability is just play Commander. If they didn't bring in banned as companion, then I think it's unlikely that she gets unbanned. But if they do, then boom. I really hope they do because Lutri is just amazing. Or just have Lutri, like Lutri should just be available in the 99, and that's it really. Mana Crypt, again, similar to Jeweled Lotus and Dockside, banned because they're so powerful and flip games in casual and are so strong in casual, but I think it's an easy choice for them to be like, hey, this is a power level 4 and allow it into other games. The Moxes, very expensive, quite strong, unlikely to get unbanned, but I don't think it's impossible. Like, they're very powerful, but I don't think it's impossible, right? Like, if I'm comparing these to like a Mana Crypt kind of thing, I think that these are possible to get unbanned, but it's just the issue is just how expensive they are, I think. Nadu, again, I think Nadu's possible. So I'm going to talk about a few coming up in this one that are cards that aren't banned necessarily because of how strong they are, but also because of how the annoying turns they take and the unfun turns they take for everyone else. So Nadu is an example for this. It's one that you just take those long, non-deterministic turns with where everyone's just sitting around. But I think that's a thing that should be okay in power level 4 decks, potentially, right? Like, because those are the decks that are going to be running, you know, the very powerful, like Mana Crypt, Dockside, Jeweled Lotus, whatever, those ones if they get unbanned kind of thing. Vampiric Tutor, the like Armageddon, those strong kind of cards that could potentially easily kind of change and screw over the Nadu player anyway. So I think that it's possible we could see Nadu unbanned for that, where people have more answers for that, especially if some of the other stuff on this list gets unbanned too. Panoptic Mirror. So obviously Panoptic Mirror is very strong. I don't think it's as cracked as it used to be. There's a lot more artifact removal nowadays, whether it's creatures that remove artifacts or, you know, just spells, abrade, that kind of thing that can remove artifacts, or just to be able to counter it as well. As I said, like, it's a very powerful card, getting a free instant or sorcery of whatever you put onto here. The biggest issue is obviously when they imprint a extra turn spell onto it. That's where the bigger issue comes in. But I do think it is possible. And they said, you know, like, combos are going to be a part of this. So like if you've got a combo, it could potentially be as like a bracket 4 combo, right? So if they just have Panoptic Mirror unbanned, unless power level 4, unless you have just unbanned unless you have like extra turns in your spell in your deck or something, maybe. I don't know. We got Paradox Engine, similar to Nadu. It's just more annoying than just pure power. Like it's very powerful, don't get me wrong, but it could be unbanned at power level 4 potentially. I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like it could be, it could not be. Primeval Titan, very strong ramp card, does a lot, but there is a lot more ramp nowadays to rival it, and it could be power level 4 for sure if it's unbanned. Prophet of Krufix, just see Krufix, see the Paradox Engine, same thing. You know, it's not exactly a fun thing to play against, and it does take longer turns and everything, but I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, and I think that there's more answers to it, and I do think that at a power level 4 where you're getting into those really powerful decks, I think that it could potentially like fit in there. Recurring Nightmare. So Chthonian Nightmare is essentially like a fixed version of this, right? And it's still seeing heaps of play. So it's not quite as strong as it used to be, Recurring Nightmare, but it's still very strong, right? Like you're cycling creatures around, and you know, you're paying 3, sacrificing something, bringing something from your graveyard back into play. There's lots of ways to be able to get things into your graveyard. And you know, you could cheat big things out with this, but it's a very fun combo piece. And as I said, Chthonian Nightmare is like a fixed version of this, but it's still seeing heaps of play, so that makes me think that it's less likely to get unbanned. Rothlos, very strong in certain decks, but there's also a bunch of other creatures that just create so much, like, you know, Circle of Dreams Druid or like Savala, stuff that also just makes other colors. This only makes green mana. So I think it's possible, not likely, but still possible. We got Charizard. Just I do not think, again, like 0.1% chance that Charizard gets unbanned. It's just a meme of starting a sub game where you pick up your library or whatever it is, go over, sit in the other game, play that game, and then come back into the main game and then play that again. It just is, yeah, it's not fun for everyone. It's going to be fun for some people. It's just going to be huge pain. Sundering Titan, Flicker just kind of breaks this, right? Like, you just flicker it a bunch of times, destroy everyone's lands, boom. Just being able to flicker it and lock people out of the game is just really gross. Sway of Stars, again, similar to Charizard, where you're just essentially just restarting the game. It's just not as fun for a lot of people. Silvered Primordial. So this one here is similar to like the other, what was it? The Primeval Titan. Kind of similar, but this one here is more broken, I think, because you can just remove people's lands with it and ramp yourself at the same time. If you flicker it, it is crazy. Very powerful, but also just very expensive to get out. Like, it's going to cost you 7 to get it out. People can obviously remove it from that, but like, once they start flickering this, it's just going to be annoying. Time Vault, unlikely. I would say almost extremely unlikely, just because of it's so cheap to play. It's so cheap to untap it. I doubt it's going to be allowed anytime soon. Time Walk, similar to Ancestral Recall at the start there. 2 mana. Take 1 extra turn in blue. So many ways that this can easily be abused, where you're mage crafting it, you're copying it, you're, you know, recurring it, whatever. It's just so insanely cheap that doing all of those things, it's just so much easier because you just have more mana available to do those things with it. Tinker, especially now that we've got, like, you know, food clues, and treasures, you can just sack those with Tinker to bring in an artifact, any artifact. It's, yeah, and you can recur it, right? There's, like, if you use this and then you bring in some artifact that allows you to recur sorceries from your graveyard, and it's just so easily to be abused, especially how it doesn't say, like, non-token artifact, so you can just sack tokens with it. Talarian Academy, you got treasures, you got foods, you got clues. Again, easy to see how this could be very, very broken. Trade secrets. This one here, because of the way Commander works, you've got 4 players, right? If you choose someone, you make a deal with them. Look, you can draw heaps of cards. As long as you let me draw heaps of cards too, you can just do that politicking. It's going to set you 2 ahead so much more than everyone else that it's just too powerful, I think, in a 4-player game. Upheaval, as I said before about the other ones like Charizard and stuff, this is just going to be resetting your board. And it's just too unfun, I think, for the format, and essentially, like, just makes it so that everything just goes back to people's hands. And yeah, it's a board wipe, but it also just resets everyone's lands. That's the bigger issue, is that it resets lands as well. And, you know, you might not have a big benefit from this. It's just resetting it just for the sake of resetting it because you're behind or something. And then finally, we've got Yawgmoth's Bargain here. It's obviously a more powerful version of, like, Necropotence, but it does cost 6 instead of 3. So I think it could potentially be unbanned because of that. And we're seeing more powerful draw stuff slowly creeping in anyway. There's more enchantment removal as well. But obviously, you know, the 40 life does make this super abusable. Once you pay 6, you can just spam it out, draw 20 cards, lose half your life. But then from there, you've got a huge hand to be able to win with, right? As well as the fact that, you know, in black, or if you're, like, you know, in Orzhov or something, you've got ways to get that life back too. So it's a very powerful card. I think that it could potentially be unbanned. but it's not a likely unban. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree with what I'm saying? Have I completely screwed up one of these cards in my evaluation of it? And you think, you know, Tauna, you're a bloody idiot for saying that she could be unbanned. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.